going to teach you how to complete the square. Completing the square is another method of solving quadratic equations. Our first method is factoring. Whenever possible, we want to try to factor. So in order to factor this one, we would need two numbers that multiply to 7 and combine to 2. That's not possible, so factoring is out, but factoring is one option of solving. So we can't factor, so our next option is the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula always works, so if we can't factor, we can always use the quadratic formula, and the equation for the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Now, sometimes the quadratic formula can get a little bit daunting when we have smaller numbers. It's a lot of math that we have to do that we don't necessarily have to do because there's a third method. The third method for solving is called completing the square. Now, completing the square is a process of turning the quadratic that we're given into a perfect square trinomial. So what we do is we take this 7 here and we're going to replace it with something else. So the 7 is going to be replaced with a number that will turn this into a perfect square trinomial. Now, in order to do that though, we have to move this 7 to the other side of the equation. So we're not actually getting rid of this 7, we're just putting something else in its place. So we'll have x squared plus 2x equals negative 7. Now we're going to put a new number in here where the 7 was. In order to find that new number, we take half of the middle term, so that's 1, and then we square it. Now 1 squared is 1, so we're going to add this to both sides. The reason we have to add it to both sides is because we have to keep our equation balanced. We're allowed to do anything we want to a quadratic, or any type of equation actually, but in order to do whatever we want, we have to do the same thing on the other side. So now that I have added 1 to both sides, now I can factor. Now the trick for factoring is you don't even have to think about it. It's always x, whatever the sign in the middle is, plus, and then whatever the half that we took, so in this case the 1, x plus 1, and then that quantity is squared, equals the other side, so negative 6. Now the reason this works is because we made it this way. We made it to be a perfect square trinomial, so that way when we factored it, it would turn into a binomial squared. Now from here we would finish solving by taking square roots. So I would take the square root, but in doing so I would try to take the square root of negative 6, so in this case there's no real solution. In Algebra 2 you'll deal more with how to continue solving these, but for now in Algebra 1 we just say no real solution and move on. So another example would be something like x squared plus 10x minus 9 equals 0. So once again we have to add 9 to get the 9 out of the way to make room for the new number that we're going to put in there. Now we have our new number, our spot for our new number, so we can complete the square. So half of 10 is 5, 5 squared is 25. So I'm going to add 25 to both sides. So I've added 25 to both sides, now I factor. X plus half of the middle term was 5 squared equals 9 plus 25 is 34. From here we would take the square root of both sides, so x plus 5 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 34. Then we move the 5 to the other side, so x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 34. And in most cases we can just leave it like that. Okay. So completing the square does get a little bit harder. Where it gets a little bit harder is if there's a leading coefficient, something like 2. So if we have 2x squared plus 20x plus 14 equals 0. Our first step that we want to do is we want to divide everything by 2. So when we divide everything by 2, we get x squared plus 10x plus 7 equals 0. And now we can finish completing the square. So we move the 7. Half of 10 is 5. 5 squared is 25. So we add the 25 to both sides. Now not sure why I have a 9 there. That should be a negative 7. So now when we factor, we get x plus 5, because it's positive and 5 was half of the middle term, squared, equals, over here, negative 7 plus 25 would be 18. And we finish solving, square root both sides. X plus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 18. Subtract 5 from both sides, so our final answer is x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 18. And now as we continue, at some point I'm going to show you how to simplify the 18, but not right now. So for right now, you can just leave the square root of 18, and I'll teach you how to simplify that at another day. Another example, let's say we have 2x squared minus 5x plus 10 equals 0. Our first step is to divide everything by 2. So x squared minus 5 halves x plus 5 equals 0. Move the 5. Now, this seems really scary, but it's not. Okay, now the reason it's not scary is because we left this 5 halves as a fraction. So when we take half of 5 halves, really all we do is double the denominator and get 5/4. So now when we square 5/4, we just square the top and bottom. Plus 25 over 16. So I added it to one side, so I have to add it to the other side. Now, this factoring is not scary because we take the x, we keep the middle term here, and then it was whatever half of the middle was, so it's 5/4. We don't even have to think about it. We just copy that number back down. Equals. Now over here we need common denominators. So negative 5 times 16 would be negative 80 over 16 plus 25 over 80. Well, at this point we can actually stop because negative 80 plus 25 is going to give us something that's negative. So we know that when we try to take the square root, we're going to get a square root of a negative number, so there's no real solutions.